Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another PC Boys podcast. This is your host, Logan Locke. So, we're finally having a little bit of a break for movie reviews or video game reviews. Last two podcasts I've done have actually been reviews. So, going forward, reviews are going to be more of my higher quality videos. We'll have some background music, a cool intro, try to make them different each time. But the, podcast that I do where I'm just talking about, movie news, video game news, that stuff's relatively going to remain exactly the same. But before we get started, I just want you guys to know that the link tree will be in the description down below. We do have new merch available through a different store, so if you guys want to support us and, rep some of that, get the name out there, that'd be awesome. Also, socials are down below as well. But without further ado, we are going to talk about Venom 3, the trailer, mainly the big reveal in the trailer, and kind of give some, some predictions, if you will, of upcoming movies and how everything's going to play into it from Venom 3. So that's where we're going. Basically predictions. But yeah, so we got to get the big, elephant out of the room. Knull has officially been shown to us in the Venom 3 trailer. As you can see down below, I have the picture here of Knull. And this is one of the few frames that we get of him in the trailer. Judging on the trailer as well, it seems like Knull is stuck in the throne world. So that's where he's probably going to be, I would say, through most, if not all, of the movie. And for those of you that don't know what the throne world is, before Knull actually, gets out of the throne world to, commit all of his, heinous acts or, universe conquering, battles, he is essentially stuck in this place on the Clintar home world. I think it's in the middle of the planet called Throne World, if I'm correct. That's where it's located. And while he's there, he can't control the symbiotes. He doesn't have the all black. He's pretty much in his weakened state, if you will. So his major goal in this movie will probably most likely be to escape Throne World, get Venom, who may have connections to the All Black, and then be able to take over the universe and plunge it into darkness. So that would be my guess. As you can see up here, I have another picture of some of the Venom 3 casting, and Norman Reedus is on there. Now, if you look at Knull and the nose in particular, you can tell that's Norman Reedus. There's been a bunch of, people going around saying Norman Reedus is playing Knull. And he's actually been on the Venom 3 casting sheet now for a long time. So Norman Reedus originally was put underneath the name Aunt May, which was obviously not true and a typo. If you see here with Cristo Fernandez, he also is listed as Eddie Brock. So clearly there's something going on there when it comes to putting people's characters' names into place. But if we talk about Knull, it's for me, I'm very kind of split on the idea of having Knull actually in this movie and going forward, because Knull is a Avengers level villain. He is not somebody that Venom can beat alone, or even Venom and Spider-Man teamed up can beat alone. He literally went one-on-one with the Avengers, and I think Odin forced Thor, if I'm correct, and he just stabbed him. Even though Thor did end up breaking his jaw and stuff, he just took out the Necro Sword and just, stabbed him, and that was pretty much the end of him. So he is a very powerful character that can rival some of the strongest Avengers to exist. So if you want my opinion, I think Knull in this movie is going to be kind of a background villain, where the Xenophage will go after the symbiotes and try to capture them or eat them. And Knull is essentially going to be the ones controlling them from his throne in the throne world. And he's going to have very little to do in the movie outside of just being this looming threat in the background. But I do think this is going to lead us into potentially an MCU appearance by Knull in Secret Wars. Maybe even Spider-Man 4. And the reason I say this is because, number one, after Spider-Man No Way Home, we know that Sony and Marvel had to go back and do negotiations because, that was the ending of the Spider-Man trilogy. And, of course, after the events of Madam Web and stuff like that, which this was before Madam Web, obviously, but introducing Knull's a pretty big deal. And we're in the multiverse saga, and we've already gotten rid of Kang due to, number one, the Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania box office reception, as well as how well it did, which it didn't do well at all. It was a big loss for Disney. And then, of course, the Jonathan Majors, of course, court cases and stuff like that. So now that we have Doctor Doom as the main big bad of the Avengers films, bringing Knull in seems like, even though this is a Sony movie we're talking about and not a Marvel Studios Marvel movie, so the continuities are separate but connected via the multiverse, it is very concerning for a lot of fans because they're like, well, Knull is he's a, larger than life villain. He's an Avengers level threat. So what are they going to do with Knull? And simply all that I can say personally is what they'll probably do is by the end of Venom 3, he will escape Throne World somehow. Or maybe even in Spider-Man 4. And they'll do like a Venom Spider-Man team-up movie that will further elaborate on the lore of Knull and who he is and how dangerous of a threat he is. And then when we get to Avengers Secret Wars, we will find out from Doctor Doom who would be the big bad of Doomsday, so the Avengers film prior to that the reason he ended up, going on a quest for artifacts in Doomsday was so that he could create weapons to fight against a bigger threat coming, that being Knull, and explaining that the reason he killed those Avengers or whatever is simply because, well, they were in his way and the multiverse is at stake, so it's kind of, he had to do it. And Knull will then be the big bad in Avengers Secret Wars. Because if you even just look at the two major, I guess you could say motives for each villain, if we're talking about Doctor Doom in the Secret Wars comics became God Emperor Doom, created Battleworld. He ruled over it with an iron fist, but Doctor Doom is not sitting there saying, I want to kill everybody. That was never his goal, was to kill everybody. But Knull, on the other hand, is very much in line with killing everybody and plunging the entire universe/multiverse into darkness. Because Knull is a character that was created in the void before the Big Bang, away from light. He is literally born of darkness. And he created the first symbiote being the Necrosword, which was in Thor Love and Thunder, but they couldn't call it the Necrosword. They couldn't call it or give it any symbiote relation back to Knull because of rights issues with Sony and Marvel. But Knull was able to decapitate and defeat Celestials with the Necrosword with ease, and that's how the planet Nowhere from Guardians of the Galaxy became a thing. In the comic continuity, Knull decapitated that Celestial and that head that ended up becoming Nowhere. That was all, Knull's doing. So Knull is a very dangerous character, and to have him be this villain in this Venom movie to me seems a little weird and out of place, because it's like, well, and you're at the ending of this trilogy, you're not going forward, and Knull would be your Thanos level big bad in the Spider-Man Venom universe, or in for those characters, but he's also faced the Avengers and whooped them. So that leads me to believe that this Knull appearance is actually going to tie into the MCU somehow. And that to me seems to be the ultimate thing that maybe they're shooting for, and kind of doing like a gaslight or a what's the word that I'm looking for? Like a misdirection, right? Like, oh, here comes Doctor Doom, the big bad, and he's killing these Avengers, and he's unstoppable, and he's getting these artifacts, and then you come to find out in Secret Wars that actually, no, Doctor Doom is not the big bad. Knull from Venom 3 and Spider-Man 4, or Venom and Spider-Man, or whatever they title that movie, actually, that's the big bad. And this is what I think would be smart for Marvel Studios, is if the plan is to bring Knull into Secret Wars as the big bad, what they would need to do is establish him not only in Venom 3, but in Spider-Man 4. Because you would need that MCU connection, and not everybody that watches the MCU is gonna go watch Venom. And for that reason, you need to establish that connection. So that way, Knull can appear in the MCU. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, where's Knull been? What's he been doing? He's been stuck in the Throne World. It's literally that simple of an explanation. He starts in the Throne World in Venom 3, therefore he can't leave the Throne World. He can't do anything, go anywhere. So it explains completely and perfectly and easily where he's been and what he's been doing. Not much, just sitting in the Throne World, trying to find a way to escape. And now that he has been able to escape, he's got to be looking for the All Black to become the King in Black and then plunge the universe into darkness. And it makes a lot of sense. You could even say that, Doctor Doom gets that little symbiote that was left in the MCU and gives it to Peter Parker, right, in Secret Wars. That could literally happen. Dr. Doom could say, oh, and Peter, I actually have something specifically for you. And it would actually be kind of funny because, Iron Man gave Peter Parker the Iron Spider suit specifically for Avengers Infinity War, so it would be very interesting to see Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom give Peter Parker the symbiote suit from the little droplet that was left in the MCU as well. It would be kind of a little bit of a throwback and nod back to when Tony gave him the Iron Spider suit, except this time it's Tony, not Tony. Because it's Robert Downey Jr. who played Iron Man, but is now playing Doctor Doom, giving him another suit, or, the alien, symbiote that would create the black suit. I think it would be the most perfect kind of, full circle event. But I think personally that this is where they're going. And I understand that this podcast is not talking about Venom 3 a lot, but that's mainly because Knull is not a Venom 3-centric thing. I don't think Knull is going to be a big role in Venom 3. I think he's just going to simply be there to be introduced and be brought into the MCU and be a big bad in the MCU. And it would really make me upset if they do make him fight Venom and he loses, because it would make no sense to me. And it would be such a waste of an amazing villain. Even though Knull is technically only 6 years old, so it hasn't even been around for a decade yet, he still is very powerful and very respected. So it's one of those things where they need to do Knull right? And if they're going to build him up to be the Secret War villain or the villain in Spider-Man 4, they need to do it right. And if they don't implement Knull correctly, I feel like it could have a big negative backlash and effect on both the MCU and the Venom franchises. And it simply comes down to execution. I think that it could be done well. And if Kevin Feige has anything to do with this movie, any pointers that he's given Sony or anything on the direction to take this movie, I think it would be perfect for them to build Knull up as Secret War's big bad. Because like I said, if you just take the two villains and you take the comic arcs and what their motivations are and their end goals are, when it comes to Doctor Doom, yeah, he's a big bad, he's really intelligent, really smart, really powerful, but he's not somebody that's trying to end everything. Control it and rule over it, sure, but that's very different than plunging everything into darkness. Those are vastly different goals. And you could simply have Doctor Doom explain, I created Battleworld and the incursions had to happen to get you all here so we can all fight Knull together. And it would also create an emotional drama, dialogue with the Avengers and Doctor Doom for killing some of the Avengers in the prior movie, but also having to put aside their differences to fight Knull, who is ultimately the threat of the multiverse. And to me, if they don't utilize Knull as the Secret Wars villain, I think that very well it will be a wasted opportunity. I think building Knull up to just be a big bad in Spider-Man 4 is ridiculous, because Spider-Man and Venom combined would not even be able to do anything to Knull. Not really. So I think making him an Avengers level villain is a good idea. And I understand that we're so late in the game when it comes to the multiverse saga to introduce another big villain. But at the end of the day, I think that this multiverse version of Doom coming out of nowhere has less buildup than putting Knull in Venom 3 and then in Spider-Man 4 and then getting the full payoff in Secret Wars. If you take a look at Thanos was built up very slowly. He had a quick appearance in the Avengers post-credit scene, a quick appearance in the, I think it was Age of Ultron post-credit scene, and then he appeared in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 for a little bit. Outside of that, though, that's 3 appearances, brief appearances by Thanos, before we got to Infinity War, where he was the big bad villain. And I think with, Knull, you could do the same. Have him appear in Venom. Then really elaborate, to establish him, to kind of build it up. Then establish him fully in Spider-Man 4 and show how menacing he is. Maybe even have him kill Spider-Man or whatnot, or Venom or whoever. And then in Secret Wars, you really get to see what the guy's made of when he's just botching and destroying Avengers all over the battlefield. And to me, that would be the best way to go about Avengers Secret Wars. Because if we're going to make Doctor Doom the big bad for Secret Wars, in my opinion, I think it would be very lazy. Very lazy and kind of predictable because of the comic books. I've read Secret Wars quite a few times. I mean, the dude literally ripped Thanos' spine out, right? Well, God Emperor Doom ripped Thanos' spine out. No problem. But at the end of the day, I'm looking at this and I'm like, Knull actually has the potential to be a very threatening villain to the multiverse. And they can write that in. I know Marvel Studios makes changes all the time with their movies, adapting comic lines, but not doing it one for one, which is smart. They can do the same thing here with Knull. Bring him in instead of him being... Because in the comic books, there is one Knull for every universe. But in, let's say, the MCU continuity, there's one Knull for the multiverse. And he just simply is going to plunge the entire multiverse into darkness. So, I think it's doable. I think it's plausible. But they have to do this correctly. And they have to build him up and execute in Venom, which is done by Sony, the same people behind Madam Web, and the same people behind, not only Madam Web, but Morbius, unfortunately. So there's a little bit of hesitancy, but I think if Kevin Feige has a plan, and maybe has something to do with this movie, we might have a new big bad on the way. And like I said, this theory that I came up with is all me. This is nothing to do with anything confirmed by Marvel or Sony. I just simply look at the situation that we're in, getting Knull in this movie at all, and saying, well, it'd make no sense for Venom to fight Knull, because number one, Venom's afraid of Knull, and the other symbiotes are running from Knull, as is stated in the trailer. So it would make sense to me that Knull would probably be the big bad of Secret Wars. And they can build him up more in Spider-Man 4. I think they could. You know what would actually be very intelligent for Marvel Studios to do? Have Spider-Man, right, and Venom, right, team up, or have Spider-Man do ground level stuff through the majority of Spider-Man 4. Team up with Daredevil, whatever. You bring, Venom in, right? And Venom then is, like, I need your help, Spider-Man, because of Knull and stuff. And Knull ends up coming to the 616 universe. And let's say he kills Spider-Man or gravely wounds him. And then, he gets the black suit somehow. Or Doctor Doom somehow. Well, if this movie takes place in between, I don't know. Somehow he gets the symbiote. Because he's going to have to get the symbiote, right? I'm not the one making these movies, so I'm kind of just making this up as I go along. But somehow he gets the symbiote, or Venom's able to... bring him to the future or something through the hive mind and get him in front of Tony Stark, Doctor Doom, who gives him the symbiote. I don't know how they would go about it. But you could bring Knull in and have him kill Spider-Man or kill Venom. You can have him do whatever, right? But there's another missing piece of all of this. Where is the All Black? Right? Because Knull's whole point of being is to get the All Black so he can become the King in Black and control all symbiotes, rule over the universe, plunge it into darkness. Where is the All Black? Who has the All Black? A lot of that matters. And a lot of my theory also kind of hinges on where the All Black is and how he gets a hold of it, right? How does Knull get a hold of it? Maybe Venom left the All Black. Maybe that little symbiote piece in the MCU is the All Black. I don't know what they're planning on doing. But, like I said, I think that they are building Knull up to actually be involved in the Avengers Secret War movie. I think that they are making him the big bad. But, like I said, Sony has to execute with Venom first. And then, I don't know what's going on with Spider-Man 4. If it's ground level, if it's multiverse. We've talked about it on the podcast months ago. Back when I was making videos a lot more frequently. We were talking about Venom 3 a lot. We were talking about Spider-Man 4 a lot. Spider-Man 4 is all over the place, guys. I genuinely can't tell you what's going on with that film. Normally, when you're about a year out from a movie coming to theaters, and Spider-Man, if I'm correct, is coming out next year. Or, no. 2026? Anywho, Spider-Man's coming out, let's say, within a 2-year time frame. we should have something on Spider-Man 4 by this point. Something, right? Something concrete to go off of. We have nothing. Until we see Venom 3, I don't think we're going to know what's going on. With the all black, the way that they're taking the story, but I would guarantee they're building Knull up for something big. I would say an Avengers movie. I think if they just put Knull in Spider-Man 4 and have him be the big bad and have Spider-Man and Venom team up against him and they beat him, I think that that's also just as stupid as having Venom fight Knull in his own movie and beating him, because he's not strong enough to. So I think that they need to bring him into Avengers Secret Wars and have him be the big bad. And use Doctor Doom as a bait and switch. Doctor Doom is the bad guy. Oh, wait. He's actually the good guy trying... he's done bad things, but he's the good guy trying to stop something even worse from happening. And I would love that. But then again, how do you fit Knull into the TVA, the branching timelines? How would I do it? Well, I'd simply have Knull, when he corrupts everything into darkness, those timelines die. So it'd make a lot of sense. I don't know how logically they would make it work, but I'm saying just have him plunge all timelines into darkness, or have him plunge a few timelines into darkness, right? He gets the all black, maybe he's testing out his powers or something. The TVA takes notice, and they're like, how is this possible? How are these timelines disappearing? That would also, I think that there's things they can do to make Knull more menacing and threatening as a villain. Be how are these timelines being destroyed? They're actually being corrupted. They're being turned into darkness. How is this happening? Having the TVA freak out. Having Knull come in and kill quite a few Avengers without ease. Having him kill Thor, right? These things would make people fear Knull as a big bad. And like I said, Doctor Doom basically being that ultimatum guy where it's you need me and my weapons. You need me and my mind and knowledge of Knull to beat Knull. So there would be this conflict between the Avengers and Doctor Doom, who's literally killed already their friends, allowed incursions to happen. But they need his weapons. They need his knowledge on Knull to beat Knull, because Knull's just out here one-hitting everybody with the Necro Sword. So I definitely think that it causes a lot of tension, because you got this big unstoppable villain, and then you also have this personal conflict with the Avengers and with Doctor Doom, but they need Doctor Doom. So I think that they can make Secret Wars into a really great movie. And I think they can justify it. And Knull? Well, with every major villain, right? Thanos and stuff, he has henchmen and stuff. Knull! It's very simple. He has symbiotes. Those are his henchmen. And then you can have symbiotes take over other Marvel heroes, right? Let's say Knull kills a hero or beats a hero and then infects him with a symbiote, and now they join his side, right? They can do that in Secret Wars. They can take the Secret Wars timeline with Battleworld, with Doctor Doom, but then splice it with the invasion of the symbiotes. They can do that. The King in Black, they can take all these different storylines and throw it into Secret Wars and make it this big, bombastic movie. I think it would be smart. I think it would be fun. And yes, it would be out of left field because everyone's so focused on Doctor Doom. And now that Knull is in the picture, and I get it, we're talking about Sony, who doesn't plan ahead or anything, but I'm thinking, right, if Kevin Feige has anything to do with Venom 3, of the planning of it, or whatever, I think we could be in for a big treat. But it all depends upon how they're going to actually utilize Knull and deal with Knull. But I'm really pumped. I'm really excited. We just have to wait till next month when Venom 3 comes out. I will be doing a review here on the channel for it. I plan on seeing Transformers 1 this weekend. I don't know if I'm going to review it or not, so stay tuned on that. I might not. But when Venom 3 comes out, I will let you all know my thoughts on Venom 3 and where I think everything's going to go, based upon the movie once it comes out. But ladies and gentlemen, that is the podcast. I hope you all enjoyed. And remember, I'll have the link tree in the description down below. Follow all of our socials. New merch is available. I am going to be streaming Spider-Man 2 tonight as well, starting at 8 o'clock, so in about an hour and 10 minutes. But ladies and gentlemen, that has been the podcast, and God bless, and I will catch you all in the next one.